So when we're born, we are completely unencumbered by fear. Fear of rejection, fear of danger, fear of germs, fear of anything, really. To be a newborn is to be completely fearless. As a toddler, I would tug on a random person's shirt in the grocery store, or I would lodge half of a shoe into my mouth, not wondering where it's been before. The best one of all, I would scream for hours at the top of my lungs on an airplane with no regard for what everyone else is doing. We all love those crying babies on planes. Most of us growing up had absolutely no fear when it came to walking up to strangers, right? At a young age, I would welcome new interactions, and even to the point that when I was young, all my friends wanted to be an astronaut or a firefighter. I actually wanted to be a garbage man so I could hang off the side of the truck and wave hello to everyone, all my neighbors, every single morning. A couple of decades later, I found myself with a university degree, driving Uber, and working at a local Italian restaurant, which, by the way, I absolutely loved because I got to interact with so many people and really get deep with them. And it actually paid off in my tips. I got tips that were unheard of, and it was absolutely an amazing experience. But ultimately, it was a stepping stone for me to follow my passion and my dream of becoming a broke entrepreneur. And it absolutely blew my mind that 10 years later, I had been able to raise investments and build business to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars. I thought to myself, how could an average guy like myself, the son of immigrant parents that came to the US with absolutely nothing to their name, have accomplished something so amazing and created so much value in the world? And what I realized is that I hadn't done this by myself. It was a collective of people that have done this together. And if I had to attribute one of the keys to that success, it was a rule that I made very early on. And that rule was to talk to as many people as I possibly could without any fear of rejection, any fear of anything. And so I don't care if it was the homeless person on the street or the Queen of England. I would take that meeting and I would have a conversation. And I quickly learned that every person has a unique perspective to offer, and the potential of that conversation can be potentially endless. And I want to really hone in on this point. The potential between having a conversation with a stranger or not is the difference between 0 and infinity. And so, be fearless, talk to strangers, unapologetically. That's my rule, wherever I am, whether I'm in a business meeting, a networking function, a trade show, waiting in line for a coffee on a flight, I am going to have that conversation. And some would say that I take it to the extreme. For example, I love to run and bike on the trail by my house. And I learned that actually the fastest runners like to have a pacekeeper next to them so that that person will actually keep them up. And the fastest runners actually don't run alone. They run with other people. So when I was running on the trail, every time someone would run up past me, I would actually catch up to them, pull up next to them, give them a weird, awkward smile, and say hi, and strike up a conversation. There was either one of two things that happened when I did this. Number one, it would scream at the top of their lungs, pepper spray me to the ground, and call the police. Or number two is that we would actually have a great conversation. That was more often than not. All joking aside, out of those conversations came some friendships, some business opportunities, and beyond. It's not just on the trail that I've done this. Whenever I'm in a room full of people, I'll just walk up to the random person and start having a conversation. I'll push myself out of my comfort zone. And even in the early days of starting our business, we would sneak into a trade show or a convention because we couldn't afford tickets. And I would find a target person to go talk to, walk up in the aisle next to them, say hi, and walk down the aisle while I pitched my business, my product, and my organization. From that, we found some of the largest customers, partnerships, investors, and business opportunities. Some people would say that that's from complete randomness and happenstance, but I know that's not the case. It was actually through that consistent and persistent effort and intention to connect with others and to continue to reach out. As I reflect on my personal rule to talk to as many people as I can, I spend a lot of time thinking about what leads us to lose that openness and that fearlessness that we had when we were young. What is it? Where did it go? Why is it when we give a simple smile and a nod that a lot of times we are returned with some sort of weird look, like we're crazy? And so I started to have different thoughts about this, started testing it out as I traveled all over the US in different cities, taking notes on whether or not I would get a weird look or how people would react. And what I found actually is that in major metropolitan cities, New York, Boston, LA, San Francisco, it was about a 50% chance that someone would give me a weird look. And this actually kind of discouraged me a little bit. The next week after I realized that, I was in Hawaii, and I was just walking on the street and walked by someone, and they said, "Hi, how are you?" And they actually started having a conversation with me. That absolutely blew my mind. And so I thought that just must be something out of the blue, not going to happen again. Then it happened again for the second, third, fourth, fifth time. At the very least, they would say, "Hi, how are you?" with a nice smile, something that I hadn't seen in other places in the world. And so it fascinated me that the idea that different cultures could actually have this difference in reaction and difference in interaction. So I got really interested in the topic of talking to strangers, and I started to dive deeper in. I started to research, and I actually went out and conducted my own study. What we did is we did an fMRI brain scan on the brain of people when they're walking up to strangers. And a very unique part of their brain actually lit up right in the center. And the scientific term for this place in the brain, if you want to really look at it, it looks kind of like this. And we call this the isolation elephant. And the isolation elephant, everyone has one. It starts out small when you're a baby, and it grows over time. But based on the reactions of other people around you, your parents, your friends, your family, telling you, look both ways before you cross the street, or, don't speak without being spoken to. Over time, it grows. But usually, the elephant is just fine, hanging out, doing its own thing, chilling out. Not a care in the world. It's comfortable in its own space. But it always has something in the back of its mind. It's asking questions like, what will people think of me? What if they don't like me? What if they're busy? What if I get rejected? Is it too dangerous? Right? And every other question that might pop up as we're kind of thinking of interacting with others, until something very interesting happens. Anytime that we see the need or the interest to approach someone else, there is another part of your brain. It's a small hole in the back of your brain. It's called the confrontation mouse. Is this like cute little harmless, mostly harmless little creature in your brain. But it absolutely terrifies the isolation elephant. And once it comes out, all of those fears of the isolation elephant start to jump out, and it just starts freaking out and jumping all over the place. And the only way to calm that isolation elephant down is to actually make the confrontation mouse your friend. And if you can make it your friend and make it part of you, then there is a space for you to be alone and to be in isolation, but there's also a space for you to put yourself out there and to interact with the world. And if you can make that confrontation mouse your friend, the whole world opens up to endless possibilities. It's no wonder that loneliness has become one of the greatest epidemics in today's world. They say that 1 out of 4 people claim to be lonely today. And we no longer live in a world with a sense of community where you can go over to your neighbor's place and ask to borrow some eggs or a cup of sugar, right? We stay locked instead in our homes behind a screen, watching other people live out their best lives. Human interaction has plummeted, and it's up to us collectively to change that and bring back the conversation. But it's not only about what you serve to gain from an interaction, but also about what you serve to give. You never know what a single conversation will lead to, how you can touch someone's heart, make their day, turn them off a ledge, or make them take that leap of faith that they've been so scared to do for so long. You never know how a conversation may change the trajectory of someone's life, or how someone else can change yours. If you think about it, everything that was ever built, created, ever done, any organization, any company, any human initiative, is simply a long series of human conversations, a series of human interactions. So today, and from here on out, I want to challenge you all to intentionally talk to strangers. The next person you see, go up to them, say hi, and see what comes from it. It may be nothing. It may change your life, and it may change theirs. Be fearless, be unapologetic, and be kind. Strike up a conversation. Compliment someone's shoes. Offer a helping hand. Make a funny joke. Smile. Ask a question that you already know the answer to. It doesn't really matter. But don't be afraid to talk to other people. Unless you put it out there, you'll never truly know the result. But one thing is for sure, is that in this world, we can't do anything alone. And in a single conversation, I believe that you can truly change the world. Thank you.